Beruchim and ladies, welcome. Chodesh Tov u'mevorach. Today, of course, is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and we are very, very quickly approaching Hag Pesach. Shi'avu Anenu L'Tova, Amen. The Haggadah Shel Pesach says, Yachol mi Rosh Chodesh, that there was a thought that maybe we should read the Haggadah on Rosh Chodesh. But then the Haggadah said, no, we'll wait for the matzah and the maror. Lo amarti ela b'sha'a shematzah and maror munachim lefanecha. Although we don't have matzah and maror in front of us this afternoon, however, since the time is short, so I would like to begin to make some comments on the Haggadah Shel Pesach. This will serve as your mental preparation for the holiday. I know you ladies are doing a lot of physical preparations in the cleaning and in the cooking and all the different hachanot for Leil HaSeder, which is praiseworthy, and you get extra credit for stealing some time from this important work to come and prepare mentally for the Hag. So I'd like to make just reveal an idea in the Haggadah, and this could be your Divrei Torah LaShulchan. So what I wanted to talk about is the Manashtana. The Manashtana is the highlight of the Seder. It's usually the longest part of the Seder because all the kids show off what they learned in school, how they all know how to ask for questions in whatever language they might have been taught, and all the parents and grandparents receive a lot of nahat to see that the children are learning and that all their tuition is paying off. And today's class is being studied, yes, Begaras Bat Bahiyah, Ruach Hashem Tenichena Began Eden, Mrs. Grace Kindi, Adeha Shalom. So, that's the way the Seder works. It has to work with 4 questions and then an answer. We don't just tell the kids right away, Avadim hayinu lefar'o. It has to be preceded with questions. To the extent the Gemara says that if there's nobody to ask the questions, the Balabayit, the host himself, has to ask the questions to himself. Now, I don't think he's going to stand on a chair, but nonetheless, he has to ask the questions to himself. I always wondered, what kind of Seder is that, where there's no children and grandchildren, and the Hakam has to ask the questions to himself, until we had COVID, and then all of a sudden you had a lot of Sedarim that you had the 75-year-old man asking his wife, the Manashtana. And then you said, this is what the Gemara was talking about. There's nobody else to say it, so he had to ask it himself. So, we all know the questions. The questions are quite obvious, although I think some of the questions are outdated, but I'm not going to change the Haggadah, Has v'Shalom. The first question we ask is, Shebechol halelot en anachnu metabelim afilu pa'am achat. That all year we don't even dip once. And tonight, shtei pa'amim, we dip twice. We dip the karpas and we dip the maror and the haroset. Again, I'm not sure the kids in this generation can appreciate such a question, because today, in every meal we dip 100 times. This is the generation of dips. If you go to the restaurant, they have more dips than entrees. Between the garlic mayo and the chimichurri and all the other dips that everybody has. So I don't think the kid really appreciates this question. We don't even dip once. What are you talking about? If anything, the kid should say, all year long we dip 100 times, and tonight we only dip twice. That might be the revised question. But again, what I think the question really is that we're not obligated to dip. There's no mitzvah to dip a sushi into soy sauce. That's a chumrah. It's a stringency. But you have to dip the celery and you have to dip the maror. So I think the question is, all year long we're not obligated to dip, and tonight we have a chiyuv to dip twice. That might be the question. Yes, we have it in a different order. No, you have it in a different order. In any event, in any event. So then the second question that we have is Shebechol HaLelot, all the other nights. Anachnu ochlim she'al yirakot, so we eat other vegetables. V'halayla hazeh maror. On the night of Seder, so we have maror. Again, I don't think the modern generation appreciates this question because most of the ladies are eating maror every single day. If you go to the store in Avenue U, they sell 10,000 maror salads a day. Everybody's walking around with a basket of maror all year long. So the question then is, why are we eating other vegetables, but tonight we're only eating maror? Fine, that's the question. Although it's, again, maybe dated, but we're not changing the Haggadah. And then we ask, all year long we eat hametz or matzah, meaning hametz or matzah. We have a choice, but tonight it's all matzah. That still stands. And then why are we leaning? All week, all year long, we either eat sitting straight or we lie on the couch. But today, the position that we eat in is misubin. That's the questions. Now, obviously, the one that's asking this question, he must be a bright kid. If I had to say, I would say the one that asked the Manishtana is a Hakam, because he's able to ask and articulate 4 seemingly good questions. He makes 4 observations. He's very observant, and he's able to ask his father or mother the questions. He's even a prophet because he's asking things that we didn't even do yet. We didn't even dip twice yet, and he already anticipates we're going to dip a second time. Because I guess he could see maror and haroset, so he makes the calculation. Oh, this is probably that's the dip for the harot, for the maror. We didn't eat the matzah yet, and he's already asking. Tonight we're only eating matzah. So he's definitely an intuitive child, a wise kid. And he anticipates already all the things that we're going to do, and he asks his father the question. My point is that, and what do we answer him? We tell him, oh, we were slaves to Paro in Egypt, and Hashem took us out. I think this kid that's asking the 4 questions knows that already. I don't think any of our children, when we tell them the answer, oh, there was a guy called Paro, he was a bad guy, we were slaves in Egypt, and then we got out. No kid smacks his forehead and says, wow, that's a Hidush. He knows more about Avadim, Ha'inu Paro, than his father that's trying to answer him. So, my point is, there might be a deeper question that the child is asking. I believe that, and this I saw in Rav Hida. You see, some of the things that we do on the night of Pesach remind us of slavery. Some of the things that we do on the night of Pesach remind us of freedom. And it's very easy to categorize it. For example, the matzah that we eat is to commemorate the bread of affliction that we ate in Mitzrayim. Slaves eat matzah. It's cheap food, and it doesn't digest that fast. So therefore the matzah reminds us of the poor man's bread. So that's slavery. Maror, the bitter herbs. So therefore, whether you eat horseradish or whether you have romaine like we have, it's somewhat bitter. It reminds you of the slavery. And then you have the dipping. The Gemara says rich people dip. They have condiments on their table and they can afford to dip. That represents the freedom. And the leaning, for sure. Only rich people recline when they eat. So basically you can categorize all these things that we're doing and put it in whatever box you want. Is this the freedom box or is this the slavery box? And guess what? I think the kid figured that out also. I mean, he doesn't have to be the Gaon of Vilna. He sees we're doing 4 things. He knows we were slaves, so he could probably make an assumption, an affair. He has intuition. He could probably say, listen, we're probably eating matzah because that's what slaves do. They eat matzah. It's poor man's bread. And we're eating maror for the same reason. And why are we leaning? Rich men lean. Tonight we're rich. We came out of Mitzrayim. And why are we dipping? That's the way of wealthy people. They dip. So therefore, if everything is understood to the kid, so what is he asking? There must be a deeper question. I came to reveal the secret of the Manishtana, what the real question is. And by doing this, we uncover a great Hidush about the Exodus itself. So I begin with a question that's going to sound strange, but please Give the question the benefit of the doubt. Don't give me the benefit of the doubt. Give the question the benefit of the doubt because it's a very strong question. Why are we celebrating Pesach at all? What do you mean when you celebrate Pesach? Rabbi, the greatest miracle that ever happened. We came out of Mitzrayim, miracles upon miracles, 10 plagues, 50 miracles on Yam Suf, and you're asking, why should we make a holiday for this? If you're not going to make a holiday for Pesach, then you shouldn't make a holiday for anything. My question is like this. If somebody was in prison for 25 years, and then he gets free, I have no doubt every year on that anniversary of the freedom, he'll make a party. He'll call all his friends, he'll call all his family, he'll take wine, he'll make a l'chaim. But if that person who was freed from prison subsequently was put back in prison, and he was put back in a more severe prison, under more harsh conditions, I highly doubt that he's going to celebrate the anniversary when he came out the first time. Because now he finds himself in a worse place. So there's nothing to celebrate. And I ask you with the highest respect, it's true we came out of Egypt, but I don't know if you're following the Jewish history. Following Egypt, we are still in exile. The exile that we're in now is actually much more severe than Egypt. Egypt only lasted for 210 years. We are pushing 2,000 years. We have the Torah. I don't say no. But I also say that we have the Holocaust. And in this galut over here, it's more severe than Egypt. We don't see in Egypt they killed 6 million Jews. In this exile, it was the worst. And they didn't. In one exile, you have the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition, Tah V'Tat, and everything else in between. And here we are. We're still there. And now we come on Pesach and say, we left Pesach. Unbelievable. What have you left Pesach? Where are you? Where are you? You not only left Pesach, you went back, and you went back to a worse place. So what's to celebrate? It's a very strong question. And I think the Siddur, pardon me, misleads us. I don't know the text that some of you have. I can only know the text that I have in my Siddur. Don't hold it against me. My Siddur says, "Vayosi et amo Yisrael mitocham me'avdut lecherut olam." We say this in Arbit, that God took us out of Mitzrayim, me'avdut, from slavery, lecherut olam. What does cherut olam mean? Cherut is freedom. And what does olam mean? Eternal. Cherut olam. Eternal freedom. It's not true. It's not true. The Geula and the Cherut of Mitzrayim was not eternal. It was followed by Galut. We're in Galut right now. What kind of eternal freedom is this? I mean, the proof of the pudding is we're now giving this class in America. This is Galut, a very severe Galut. And it's 1900 plus years of Galut. So how could the Siddur say that Mitzrayim is called Cherut Olam? Cherut Olam? Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a Cherut. And it lasted for however long it lasted. But there was Galut afterwards. So the question, of course, then becomes, and I'm not trying to put a damper on the holiday. I know you made your preparations already. I'm not telling you, I don't plan on canceling the holiday. I'm just questioning what is the kavanah of the celebration. So in order to understand, I need to ask a question to our members. If I were to ask our members, you all recognize that the Jewish people have incurred different exiles in our history. Exiles are called galuyot. And they taught us in school when we were young that there's different exiles that we went through. How many exiles do they always teach us about? Hazak Baruch. That's what I was going to say also. They always teach us about the 4 exiles. They drilled this in their head. I took tests on this. And they tell us the first Galut was called Galut Bavel. That's Nebuchadnezzar, and he destroyed the first temple. And then Parasu Madai. Parasu Madai, that's Hashverosh. And that's Haman. And then we have this. We have the holiday of Purim, where we got saved from Parasu Madai. And then we have Yavan. That's Greece. That's Antiochus. and then we have the holiday of Hanukkah to commemorate getting saved from that, and then we have the current Galut, which is called Galut Edom. Fine. Babel, Parasu Madai, Yavan, and Edom. And my question is, it's true that we have these 4 Galuyot, but how come there's no mention in the 4 Galuyot of Mitzrayim? We don't mention Mitzrayim. I have no problem. 5 Galuyot, but nobody ever puts 5. If you put 5 Galuyot on a test, you get it wrong. There's 4 exiles, and there's so many remazim all over the Torah to the 4 exiles. There's so many Pesukim that have 4 items on it, and that's connected to 4 Galuyot, and they forget the main one, Galut Mitzrayim. That's the one, by the way, that we make the biggest fuss over. As far as I know, we have no holiday commemorating Galut Bavel that we got out of it. Do you know a holiday that commemorates Galut Bavel? I don't. Galut Parasu Madai, we have a one-day holiday called Purim. Yavan, it's true, 8-day holiday called Hanukkah. But I'm not remembering Hanukkah all year long. And then Edom, which we're in now, I guess we commemorate it on Tisha B'Av. But the most remembered and commemorated out of all the Galuyot is Mitzrayim. Every second, somewhere in the prayer or somewhere in our service, we're saying, Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim, Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim. Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim is all over the place. And it's so prevalent, and it's so common, and it's so apparent. And then when we come to Galuyot, we totally forget it. We're oblivious of Mitzrayim, and all we're talking about is the other 4. And I'm just asking, what happened? What happened to Mitzrayim? So in order to understand, there's answers. There's definitely answers to this question. In order to understand this concept, I need to bring to your attention what the Arizal said. It's a great revelation. Rav Chida brings it as well in his Haggadah Shel Pesach. You remember we learned in this class many times, the shiur I should say, many times we learned the concept of that our history is usually pre-lived by earlier generations, like what we say, Ma'aseh Avot, Siman Banim, that a lot of what we endure and go through actually happened earlier in the history. That whenever you're studying Jewish history, you always have to try to trace it back to its roots, to its origin, to its first, to the beginning. Arizal says a great secret. He says, yes, there's definitely Galut Mitzrayim, and that's a very, very predominant and significant Galut. You know why? Not because it was the longest. It was not the longest at all. I said this Galut that we're in is 10 times longer. But what makes it the most important and the most significant? Because it was the first. And being that it's the first, all the subsequent Galuyot are actually born from Galut Mitzrayim. Galut Mitzrayim is the chromosome of Galut. It's the DNA of Galut. And in Mitzrayim, there's actually all 4 exiles. They're all concentrated in Mitzrayim, in one. It's almost like a lady that's pregnant with quadruplets. Don't get scared. It's all in the mother, but it's before she gives birth, it's just one. They're all inside of her. And then they give birth one at a time. Mitzrayim is the quadruplet of Galuyot. It's the quad. It's all 4. And all the DNA of whatever is going to happen in the future starts in Mitzrayim. And he gives a remez to this. He says, if you take the name of Hashem, the name of Hashem has 4 letters. The Yud, and then the first He, and then the Vav, and then the final He. And he says each one of these letters represents another exile. The first Yud, Keneged Galut Bavel. And the first He is Keneged Parasu Madai. And the Vav is Keneged Yavan. and the final hair is Keneged Edom, which we're in now. So he asks, so then where's Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim's the mother. So he says, if you take the first Yud, on the Yud, we call it a kotz. On the top of the Yud, there's like a hair, a crown that comes out of the top of the Yud. He says that represents Mitzrayim. And from there was born the rest of the Galuyot. The Kutzos Shel Yud. And the Bnei Yissaschar says on this, that's why it says in the Pasuk, when the Jewish people were in Egypt, it says the Egyptians despised us. What's the language of the Torah? Vayakutsu. Vayakutsu b'pnei Bnei Yisrael. He says, Vayakutsu is Menashon Kutzos Shel Yud. That Mitzrayim actually was the top of the first Yud, which is the mother of all the exiles. So everything was actually born out of Mitzrayim. That answers to me a very, very, very strong question. If you look in the Torah, when God introduces the redemption to Moshe Rabbeinu, in Parashat Ba'era, Lachen emor lebnei Yisrael, he says, go tell the people, Ani Hashem, ve'otzeti etchem mita'at seglot Mitzrayim. I will take you out. V'tzalti etchem, I will save you. V'ga'alti etchem, and I will redeem you. V'lakachti etchem, and I will take you. And everybody knows these are the 4 leshonot of Geulah. And the question is, I don't understand. You took us out of Mitzrayim once. Why should there be 4 languages of Geulah for one exodus and one redemption? But based on what we're learning, we understand, because since Mitzrayim is the template, so therefore we went into Mitzrayim and we came out. That would be already an indication that this would happen to us again. We would go in and come out 4 times. And therefore, God is hinting to Moshe by telling him 4 languages of Geulah to hint that because I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim, it will lead you to Vehotzeti, Vehitzalti, Vega'alti, Velakachti. And that's not my theory. Actually, if you look at the Baal HaTurim on the 4 leshonot of Geulah, he says, Arba'a leshonot shel Geulah keneged arba'a malchuyot. It corresponds to 4 kingdoms. And then he writes, Ube'acharon ketiv velakachti. And the last one it says, and I will take. That implies that when you have to take something, somebody's holding on tight. And therefore you have to pull it away. So in the 4th exile, it's going to be so severe. It's going to be so long. And it's seemingly unending. So the Pasuk says, Velakachti ke'adam halokeyach bechoska. Like somebody has to pull something by force. Shehi kashem mekulam. The last exile is kashem mekulam. It's going to be more difficult. Keneged kulam. Now I'd like to make an observation. Let's look at these 4 words. We never paid attention to them because it sounds like they're 4 synonyms. I took you out, I took you out, I took you out, I took you out. But now that we see that each one represents a different exile, I think the words that we use are connected. Vehotzeti is not vehitzalti, and vehitzalti is not vega'alti, and vega'alti is not velakachti. They're 4 different words. And you have to use 4 different words because it's referring to 4 different exiles. Let's see if it works. The first exile was where? Bavel. We were taken from Eretz Yisrael outside. So therefore, the first exile, Borei Olam has to take us back from Bavel and bring us back to Israel. That's why the first word is Vehotzeti etchem. I have to take you out. Because Galut Bavel, we're in Bavel. And God says the first redemption of exile is going to be Vehotzeti. I'm going to take you out of Bavel and bring you back to Eretz Yisrael. Let's talk about the second exile, which is Paras Umadai. There, if you remember, Haman wanted to kill everybody. And you remember Queen Esther was questioning Mordechai's plan? And you remember what Mordechai told her? Ki ima haresh shaharishi ba'et hazot. If you will be silent at this moment, Rebach behasalah. Bnei Yisrael need hatzalah. They need to be saved. It'll happen from somewhere else. We will be saved, but you will lose out. And therefore, Purim and Paras Umadai, the redemption is represented as what? Hatzalah. And what's the second word? V'hitzalti etchem. V'hitzalti is keneged the Hatzalah that took place in Paras Umadai. V'ga'alti. V'ga'alti is, I will redeem you. Now that was referring to Malchut Yavan. Now if you know about Malchut Yavan, we weren't in Chutz La'aretz in Malchut Yavan. It happened in Israel during the times of the second Beit HaMikdash. And what happened is that Malchut Yavan wasn't trying to kill us physically. They were trying to convert us, and they were trying to assimilate us. And unfortunately, many Jews converted. They became Mityavnim, and the temple was defiled. And the pasuk comes along and says, as a result, when the miracle happened, there was a ge'ulah. A ge'ulah represents a redemption. For example, when somebody is redeeming a field that's in captivity or a field that's sold, the Torah uses it as a word of ge'ulah. The temple was in captivity. And therefore, v'ga'alti, I will make a ge'ulah and bring the temple back to its original kedusha, hence Chanukat HaMizbeach, the rededication and the resanctification. That is referred to a ge'ulah, a redemption, a resanctification. And then, like the Baal HaTurim said, v'lakachti, that's referring to the fourth galut, where is the strongest keneged kulam. And that's why if you notice, I'm making this observation. Not my observation. Megaleh Amukot makes it. Did you notice that the three words, the first three are mentioned in one pasuk? V'hitzalti etchem ma'avodatam, v'ga'alti etchem b'zoa netuya. Sorry, v'hotzeti etchem mitach tzivot Mitzrayim, v'hitzalti v'ga'alti. That's in one pasuk. And then the next pasuk is v'lakachti. Why are three of the exile mentioned in one pasuk, and the fourth has its own pasuk? The Baal Megaleh Amukot says, because the fourth is going to be Keneged Kulam. The fourth is going to be longer than all of them and more severe, and therefore it deserves its own pasuk. Furthermore, if you look at Parashat Re'eh, in Parashat Re'eh it talks about the 4 unkosher animals. The Torah actually lists 4 animals that are not kosher. They are the camel, the rabbit, the hyrax, whatever that is, and the hazir. The hazir is the pig. Forgive me. And the Mefarshim say, there's the number 4 again. And they say the 4 non-kosher animals represent the 4 different exiles. Each nation is represented by a different animal. And then, of course, we know that Edom, which is the exile that we're in now, is represented by the Hazir, for whatever reason. But look at this observation. When the Torah lists the 4 animals, it lists in one pasuk, Gamal, Al-Nebet, Shafan. Then the pasuk ends. In the separate pasuk, it says, Ve'eta Hazir. Why would it put the Hazir in a separate pasuk? Again, Shehazir Keneged Kulam. That the 4th exile is going to be Keneged Kulam. As we know, the Jewish people have endured more pain and more suffering and more assimilation. Keneged, all the Galuyot combined. And therefore the Torah will always put, there's the 3, and then there's the 1. And that 1 already makes the other 3 pale in comparison. So that's a very, very important yesod about Egypt being the mother, and then from Egypt comes the four. This might explain another custom that we have. I'm sure you've gone to a wedding from time to time, and you see that somebody invariably will make a toast. I'll explain to you. They fill a cup of wine, and they lift it up, and they say, long life to the bride and groom, and they make a blessing, and then everybody clinks their glasses together, and they say l'chaim, and they drink. I have no problem. On the night of Pesach, I think it's quite appropriate to make a l'chaim. I mean, we got saved. Therefore, everybody should pick up their cups and say, l'chaim, we're alive, shehayanu v'kiyamanu, all the glory belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But why do you make 4 toasts? Why do you have 4 cups? You came out of Egypt once. So therefore you have 4 cups. But based on what we're saying now, it's quite possible that the 4 kosot are actually alluding to the following fact. That since we came out of Mitzrayim, that guarantees and ensures that we're going to come out of the 4 exiles. Because if that's the template, not only does it mean that we're going to have to endure in exile, but we have good news. Because there was a redemption. And therefore the first cup, we drink Keneged Galut Bavel. I don't think it's a coincidence. The first cup we're saying, God, although it's a little late, but we're picking up our cups to thank God, you redeemed us from Galut Bavel. I don't think it's a coincidence. If you look in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, what language is the Haggadah Shel Pesach written in? Hebrew. That's an easy one. Hebrew. But there's only one paragraph in the Haggadah Shel Pesach that's written in Aramaic, the language that they spoke in Babel. And that's Halach Ma'anya, the Achal wa Batana. Right after the first cup, strange, we start talking Babylonian. We start talking Aramaic. And then all of a sudden, like we changed languages all of a sudden. Why? Because since the first cup is Keneged Galut Babel, so therefore there's a remez to Galut Babel in the Aramaic language. In the second cup, we start the Haggadah, and we mention that Paro, he was a bad guy. Paro, he wanted to kill the boys. But we say something about Lavan. Lavan bikesh la'akor et hakol. Lavan wanted to get rid of everybody. Taf v'nashim b'yom echad. Who else in history do we read that wanted to do la'akor et hakol? Haman, which is Keneged Galut, Paras u'Madai, which is the second cup. The third cup. Well, the third cup is said over Birkat HaMazon. And what do we know about what the Greeks did to Bnei Israel? They wanted to do away with the Brit Milah, and as well, they wanted to do away with the Torah itself, the Shekecham Toratach. And we lift the third cup up, and in Birkat HaMazon, we say, Berit v'Torah Hayim u'Mazon. We mention the covenant that God gave us of the Torah itself, which corresponds Galut Yavan. And then the fourth cup we lift up and we say, God Almighty, Shefoch Hamad Kal HaGoyim Asher Lo Yeda'ucha. We say, God, until when? Pour your wrath on the enemies. That's talking now in real time. We're telling Borei Olam in the exile that we're in now, pour your wrath on the enemies, which is a remez to the fourth exile, which is now. And therefore the 4 kosot actually follow this system of 4 gadluyot. Well, if that's the case, I'd like to make what I think is a stunning observation. Right before God tells Moshe Rabbeinu the 4 languages, V'otzeti, V'tzati, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti. You remember the conversation that happens right before that? It's at the end of Parashat Shemot. At the end of Parashat Shemot, so the pasuk says like this: Moshe Rabbeinu goes down to Mitzrayim. He's told by God, you're going to be the Redeemer. Looks like it's going to be a walk in the park. Go to Paro, tell him that you're representing, you work for God, show him your credentials, and just tell Paro that the party's over, I'm taking the people out. Moshe is assuming that Paro will say, okay, and everybody will live happily ever after. Well, it couldn't have started off on the wrong foot. Worse than this story. Moshe Rabbeinu goes, Paro says, I don't know, I never heard this Yud Ke Vav Ke or Elokim, I don't know what you're talking about. And guess what? I'm not sending them out. And you got me nervous now. Not only am I not sending them out, but I'm making it worse. It's going to get worse. So Moshe Rabbeinu did not make things better, he actually made things worse. And then he goes back to God. And he says, Vayashuv Moshe el Hashem, Vayomar Adonai lama ha're'ota la'am hazeh. Why are you making it worse? Lama hazeh shelachtani. Which means they were better off without me. Ume'az bati el Paro, from the time that I came to Paro to daber b'shmecha, hera la'am hazeh. You only did worse. It's a good question. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, you'll see. I have a plan. What's the plan? So there's an amazing Or HaChaim HaKadosh that I have to bring to your attention. It is a great, great revelation in Parashat Tetzaveh. Ironically, the parasha that does not have Moshe Rabbeinu's name in it. It's the only parasha that's missing Moshe Rabbeinu's name. The pasuk says, "Ve'ata tetzaveh," and you command the people. So Or HaChaim HaKadosh says, "Ubederech remez." We could hint that this pasuk is telling us what the Zohar HaKadosh writes. Ki dalet galuyot shel Yisrael, the 4 exiles that the Jewish people have endured. Kol echad mehem nig'alu memenu b'zchut echad. You need a zechut to come out of exile, and each exile, another tzaddik was credited for bringing us out. Galut Rishon, which is Babel, Nigalu b'zchut Avraham Abinu alav shalom. Ishtabach Shemo. Bet, that's Paras Umadai, Nigalu b'zchut Yitzchak. Fantastic. Gimal, the 3rd exile, that's Yavan, b'zchut Yaakov. I'm sorry to tell you, ladies, we ran out of Avot. There's only 3 Avot. But we have 4 exiles. So we need now to go to the box of tzaddikim, and we need to pull out another tzaddik to take us out of this 4th exile. Says the Rav, Vehadalid, Talui b'zchut Moshe. The final exile is b'zchut Moshe. Velezeh nit'arech ha'galut. And that's why the galut is so long. Because he writes that Moshe Rabbeinu is a man of Torah, and until the people start learning Torah on a high level, like we're learning, until the people start going back to the rigorous study of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu is not interested in saving a nation of Batlanim. He's not interested in saving a nation that's playing on their phones all day long. He wants to save people that are studying. That's why Or HaChaim HaKadosh says, Ve'ata tetzaveh. The word tetzaveh can mean to escort. Like we say, Ki mal'achav yitzaveh lach. The angels will escort you. Ve'ata Moshe, you're going to escort. Ve'ata tetzaveh et bnei Yisrael. You are going to escort the Jewish people outside from the 4th exile. Oh, if that's the case, I mean, some big Hidushim I'm about to say now. Moshe Rabbeinu represents the 4th exile. But where are all the 4 exiles hinted in? Mitzrayim. And therefore, this exile also has to be in Mitzrayim. And this is the most severe. This is the most painful. This is where we had the most collateral damage. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the redeemer of Bnei Yisrael of the 4th exile, but he also has to be at the root in Mitzrayim. So what happens when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Mitzrayim? It gets worse. It gets worse on purpose only when Moshe Rabbeinu appears. Because that's already representing the final exile that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to redeem us from. And therefore when Moshe Rabbeinu comes on the scene, yes, the Galut all of a sudden takes on a very, very severe level. Why? Because that's Moshe Rabbeinu's Galut. That's the final exile. And therefore, if Egypt is the model, so the other Galuyot they weren't comfortable by any stretch of the imagination, but they weren't as difficult. But the last one, you're going to feel it. That's why it's in its own pasuk. That's why Belakahti is in its own pasuk. That's why the Hazir is in its own pasuk. It stands alone. As a matter of fact, if you look in the book of Bereshit, do you remember when Yaakov Abinu went to the well, where he met Rachel at the well? So the pasuk says that when he got there, it says V'hineh shelosha edrei son. There was 3 edrei son, 3 flocks of sheep. Rovsim aleha. 3 flocks of sheep by the well. Says the Rav, the 3 edrei son represent the 3 exiles. But then what does the pasuk say? V'ha'even gedolah. And then there was a big rock. The big rock represents the 4th exile. It's the big rock. And that's alluded to in Mitzrayim. That's the Ma'aseh Avot Siman Banim. That when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Mitzrayim and it gets worse, that's God's way of hinting to Bnei Yisrael that it's going to get worse before it gets better. The final Galut is going to be the most severe. So, of course, we shouldn't be shocked. It happened already. And the Moshe Rabbeinu says, what's going on? And God answers him, this is the plan. If there's going to be a final redemption and you're going to be the one that redeems, it must be done in this way. The fact that it got worse before it got better is the allusion to the final Galut that we're experiencing that only Moshe Rabbeinu can take us out from. Moshe Rabbeinu took Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim at the lowest point. And it had to get low because he would have to do it again. He will do it again in this generation. In our time, and I'm quite certain that our eyes will see it. That's how close we are. But look at this. This explains to me another Hidush. In which parasha do we read about that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to escort Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, or out of the final exile? Tetzaveh. V'ata tetzaveh. And what did I tell you about V'ata tetzaveh? It's the only parasha that does not have Moshe Rabbeinu's name. There's something else that doesn't have Moshe Rabbeinu's name. The Haggadah Shel Pesach. There could be an illusion that the Haggadah is hinting. His name is missing. Where else is his name missing? His name is missing in Parashat Tetzaveh as well. And it is in that parasha where we have the remez, the Atat Tetzaveh, that you will escort the Jewish people out. There's a remez in the Haggadah Shel Pesach to that final redemption that's going to be by Moshe Rabbeinu. It could be the Haggadah by omitting Moshe Rabbeinu's name is alluding to the parasha that's missing his name, where we see this concept. Now let's go back to the story of the Manishtana. I didn't forget. So half the things we do at the night of Seder represents exile, and half the things we do represents freedom. It's simple as that. You know what I think the kid's question is? Daddy, I know. Leaning is freedom. I know dipping is freedom. I know the matzah is slavery. And I know the maror is slavery. I know that. That wasn't my question. But look at the Seder. What does the word Seder mean? Order. I mean, you'd assume that if any night is going to follow a systematic order, it's Pesach. After all, it's called Seder. Most of the meals that we have, more or less. But this is a regimented Seder. There's a discipline. There's a Seder. But I don't think there's a Seder here, by the way. Because if you came to my Seder, you know what I would do? I would say, first, Rabotai, what comes first? Avadim hayinu. First we're slaves, then we came out. So I would start the Seder. We are now going to commemorate slavery, because we were slaves first. Everybody pick up the matzah and eat the matzah. Poor man's bread. Okay, now we're going to eat maror. Oh, that's so bitter. You feel like a slave? Yeah, beautiful. Now we got slavery out of the way. Now we're going to commemorate freedom. Everybody take the celery. We're going to dip it like free people. Haroset, we're going to dip. And everybody lean. So I would have done it where you do slavery first and then freedom. That's Seder. What do we do in our homes? The exact opposite. We start the Seder by leaning and dipping. First thing we do is we lean in the first cup and then we dip. That's freedom. And then in the second cup we actually say, Baruch Ata Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. We're done. By the second cup we're out of Egypt. We're gone. So at that point you tell the kids, how does it feel to be free? Unbelievable. Ga'al Yisrael. It's incredible. Okay, now everybody pick up the matzah. What is that? Now you're a slave. What are you talking about? You just said Ga'al Yisrael. Now, how could you have maror after Ga'al Yisrael? So I have no problem. We should rename the night Lo Seder. It's the night of no Seder. Or V'nahafochu. I mean, listen, maybe that's what happens after 2 cups of wine, so everything starts to get mixed up. That's the kid's question. Why are we doing it backwards? I know what it represents. I know what it stands for. I know everything. I just don't know why you're starting with Herut and ending with Avdut. It's a bomb question. And you know what the answer we're telling him is? We're telling the kid, the Seder that we're following is not the Seder of Yetziat Mitzrayim necessarily. It's the Seder of Jewish history. The night of the Seder is following the journey of Jewish history. And we start Jewish history on the Seder with leaving Mitzrayim. But you know what's going to happen after we leave Mitzrayim? Now that the template is done, now we're going to have to incur more exiles. Avdut is followed by Herut in our history. But good news, you could drink wine even at the time that we're commemorating Avdut, because if we got out of Egypt, we're going to get out of these as well. And therefore, the Avdut that follows the Herut, and that's what it means in the prayers when we say, Vayotzi et amo Yisrael mitocham leherut olam. Ultimately, we're going to be freed forever because of Egypt. Egypt guarantees our freedom ultimately from Galut. It doesn't mean that Egypt itself was Herut Olam. But because we came out of Egypt, that's why we're going to come out of the other Galut. And that's why my mashal was flawed in the beginning of this class. When I said, if somebody gets put out of jail, and then they get put back into jail, are they going to commemorate their freedom? Well, in my case, yes, because if they know that their freedom the first time is going to be the cause of their freedom the second and the third and the fourth time, they will commemorate. Because they know because we got out the first time, that's the impetus why we're going to get out the second and third and the fourth time. So you will commemorate it. So that's why even though we're in the 4th exile, we lift a cup up. And everybody said, what are you lifting a cup up for the 4th exile? We're still here. But don't worry, we're going to get out. How do you know we're going to get out? Because we got out already from Mitzrayim. The Herut Olam. Egypt, Exodus guarantees a future for Bnei Yisrael. That's why we have no problem to lift the 4th cup, even though we're still in Galut, but I can celebrate now if I know I'm going to get out. I know it's not going to be forever. And the story of Mitzrayim guarantees that. Now what happens in the Seder? Look at the Seder, how it progresses. Right after we finish the 4th cup. So at this point, where are we in history? We're already at the end of the 4th Galut. Now what happens after the 4th Galut? Well, Eliyahu Navi. That's Mashiach. So take a cup for Eliyahu Navi now. Because now we're holding there. And now we start singing songs that we don't sing any time of the year. All of a sudden, it sounds like a child song, but it's not. Echad mi yodeya. And all of a sudden we start to sing, Echad Elokeinu, 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 Shema Ba'aretz. At that point we say, once already Eliyahu Navi comes, and the Mashiach comes, The whole world is going to be saying, Elokeinu, Elokeinu. There's going to be no more Avodah Zarah, and no more other religions, and there's no more communism, and there's no more atheism. At that moment, it's Echad, Elokeinu. So already we're singing the song of a future. And then we start singing about the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, Yivnei Beto Bekarov, because that's where we are in the Seder. We're already holding in Mashiach's time. We're holding at the end of the fourth exile. And then all of a sudden, we do something that we don't do that often, at least at a meal, after 4 cups of wine. We read the holiest song that was ever written, Shir HaShirim. All the songs that we have are holy, but Shir HaShirim is holy of holies. Kodesh Kadashim is the holiest song that we have. Why now? Because now already we finished. The Yahweh Navi is here. The Beit HaMikdash is built. So as it's our mind already, by the time you finish Seder, you're in a future world already. The Seder leaves you in fantasy world, somewhere far away from America. You're already in Mashiach land, somewhere. That's why you end the Seder on a tremendous, tremendous high. And that is Seder. It's Seder HaOlam, the Seder of the Jewish people. From Herut to Avdut, but ultimately from Avdut to Herut again. That's the Seder, and that's the answer to the child's question that we have. And this is a very, very, very comforting moment that we have on Leil Seder. That we recognize that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it once to the mother, so then already we know that the children, the 4 byproducts of Mitzrayim, and this is what Rav Chida says on the Pasuk, Ve'ele Shemot Bnei Yisrael Haba'im Mitzrayim. The first pasuk in Parashat Shemot, and these are the names of the people Ba'im Mitzrayim that came down to Mitzrayim. Says Rav Chida, if you take the word Ba'im, those that came down, Ba'im Rashi Tevot, Bet Bavel, Aleph Edom, Yud Yavan, Mem Madai. Ba'im Mitzrayim. The 4 exiles actually start in Mitzrayim. And this is what we say every day in the Amidah, ladies. And all our Amidahs, I think, are mostly the same. Where we pray for the exile, and we say, Umevi go'el libnei b'nehem lema'an shemo be'ahava. Says the Rav, Mevi go'el. God is going to bring us a redemption. From where? Mevi, Rashi Tevot, Madai, Bavel, Yavan, Edom. Mevi go'el. That God is going to redeem us, not once. God is going to redeem us 4 times. And the 4 times are hinted to one more place in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. And that's in the 4 sons. Oh, the 4 sons, what do they have to do with the Galuyot? The first son is Hakam. Well, the first Galut was Bavel. One good thing came out of Galut Bavel. Talmud Bavli. That's Hakam. Hakam Mahu Omer. We all became Hakamim as a result of Galut Bavel. Who's the Rasha? Haman Harra Hazeh. Rasha Merusha. That's Baras Umadai. Tam. What does the Tam say? Mazot. Zot Chanukat HaMizbeach. That's referring to Galut Yavan. And then the final exile. The final exile, She'enu Yodeya Lish'al. In this exile, we cannot ask any questions. Our emunah has been tested so much in this generation, with all the tragedies and even the current tragedies that take place with Yitomim and Almanot. It doesn't end, Lo Aleinu V'Lo Alechem Yomad L'Tzarotenu Dai. In this generation, we're dumbfounded. She'enu Yodeya Lish'al. We cannot ask any questions because the atrocities are so large that the only thing in this generation, we're quiet. At petachlo. Only God is able to explain these things to us. That represents the final. So everywhere in the Haggadah where you see the number 4, you know what it's alluding to. Whether it's the 4 Lishonot of Geulah, it's all the Galuyot. Whether it's the 4 Kosot, it's the 4 toasts to the redemptions that we're going to experience or we have experienced. And then we have the 4 sons. Each one represents a different Galut as well. And it is our prayer and it is our understanding from Rav Saadia Gaon. I'll conclude with this. When Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, God told Abraham, don't worry. V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu, that nation that's going to oppress you, Dan Anochi, I will judge them. How many words is that? 2 words. Dan Anochi. Look what God did from those 2 words. Look what type of havoc He brought on Mitzrayim. 10 makot, 50 miracles on Yam Suf. And that's only 2 words. Says Rav Saadia, we have pages and pages in the Navi that God predicts what He's going to do to our enemies when Mashiach comes. If from Dan Anochi, look what He did to Mitzrayim. Could you imagine when you have thousands of words of prediction? And therefore we say, Ki me'esetecha me'eretz Mitzrayim ar'enu niflaot. Amen ve'amen.